Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, recently gave a speech, and he was talking about the United States and Europe, monetary policy, inflation, and a whole bunch of geopolitical uncertainty. Now, of course, we're unlikely to hear about this in the Western media, so I found this Twitter thread here, which gives us a little bit of a translation of exactly what Putin said. First up, he stated, "The very principles of the global economic system have taken a blow. Fundamental business notions as business reputation, the inviolability of property, and trust in global currencies have been seriously damaged. When I spoke at the Davos Forum a year and a half ago, I also stressed that the era of a unipolar world order has come to an end. I want to start with this as there's no way around it. This era has ended despite all the attempts to maintain and preserve it at all cost." Then Putin went on to talk about sanctions, where he said that sanctions as a weapon have proved in recent years to be a double-edged sword, damaging their advocates and architects just as much, if not more. We see social and economic problems worsening in Europe and in the US as well. Food, electricity, and fuel prices rising, with quality of life in Europe falling and companies losing their market edge. The European Union has lost its political sovereignty, and its bureaucratic elites are dancing to someone else's tune, doing everything they are told from on high, and hurting their own people, economies, and businesses. Surging inflation in product and commodity markets had become a fact of life long before this year. The world has been driven into this by years of irresponsible macroeconomic policies pursued by G7 countries, including uncontrolled emission and accumulation of unsecured debt. Because they could not or would not devise any other recipes, the governments of the leading Western economies simply accelerated their money printing machines, such a simple way to make up for unprecedented budget deficits. I have already cited this figure. Over the past 2 years, the money supply in the United States has grown by more than 38%. The EU's money supply has also increased dramatically over this period. It grew by about 20%, or 2.5 trillion euros. We all hear about the so-called Putin inflation in the West. When I see this, I wonder who they expect would buy this nonsense. People who cannot read or write, maybe. Anyone literate enough to read would understand what is actually happening. So they printed more money, and then what? Where did all that money go? It was obviously used to pay for goods and services outside Western countries. This is where the newly printed money flowed. They literally began to clean out, to wipe out global markets. While at the end of 2019, imports of goods to the United States amounted to about $250 billion a month. By now, it has grown to $350 billion. It is noteworthy that the growth was 40%, exactly in proportion to the unsecured money supply printed in recent years. America's role has changed drastically. It has turned from a net exporter of food into a net importer. Loosely speaking, it is printing money and pulling commodity flows its way, buying food products all over the world. The European Union is building up imports even faster. Obviously, such a sharp increase in demand that is not covered by the supply of goods has triggered a wave of shortages and global inflation. And then here it is. Under the cloud of inflation, many developing nations are asking a good question. Why exchange goods for dollars and euros that are losing value right before our eyes? Global currency reserves are at 7.1 trillion and 2.5 trillion euros now. These reserves are devalued at an annual rate of about 8%. Moreover, they can be confiscated or stolen anytime if the United States dislikes something in the policy of the states involved. I think this has become a very real threat for many countries that keep their gold and foreign exchange reserves in these currencies. A conversion of global reserves will begin. They will be converted from weakening currencies into real resources like food, energy commodities, and other raw materials. Obviously, this process will go further. Fuel global dollar inflation. Now, of course, there's plenty of people who would say Vladimir Putin, he's not a good guy. He literally invaded Ukraine. He's killing people, and he's causing all sorts of geopolitical chaos. I don't disagree. But what I do know is that Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, appears to be more honest and transparent about his views on the global economy and the United States and inflation than our own economic leaders. Now, of course, there's plenty of nuance involved in this debate. There's all sorts of details like supply chains and COVID and various other policies at play. But one thing is certain is that in the United States, we were sold a story of inflation is transitory. And now we're being sold a story that a recession is not imminent. But what we have is an individual that has been operating on the global stage for years and years. And he's saying, you have high inflation because you expanded your money supply by 38% over the last 2 years. Now, many people won't listen to this warning. They'll actually ignore it because of who's saying it. But put aside for a second who the person is. I don't agree with them either. But you have to understand that this is a very serious situation. Inflation's at a 40-year high. The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. They're trying to conduct quantitative tightening. They want to crash asset prices and destroy demand, which risks pushing us into a recession. Ultimately, on the geopolitical stage, America is wobbling. This is the greatest country in the world. We literally are the shining light on the hill. And if we want to continue in our leadership position on that global stage, we got to get our act together. We got to strengthen the dollar even more. We have to get rid of the high inflation, and we've got to do our best to avoid pushing ourselves into a recession. That's no easy task. I don't envy the central bankers. It's basically a lose-lose situation. But let's not get gaslit by our politicians and central bankers at the exact same time. What we are watching in the destruction of the dollar's value and a potential recession is driven by market intervention by central bankers and politicians. Undisciplined monetary and fiscal policy is driving a lot of this. I don't think that many people in the United States see free markets here anymore, but we should return to those. We should stop intervening, and we should allow the free market to do what it's designed to do. It will use economic incentives to get market participants to find equilibriums, stabilize prices, and ultimately let us grow out of our problems. Hey you, did you like this video? Great, we make 5 of them a day and post them here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and see you next time.